Hi, I'm Michelle Fitzgerald with the Sensor Learning Center, and the video today is called Unseen Energies and How They Can Topple You in Seconds. I've been involved with the unseen realms for most of my life, for probably a good 40 years or more, consciously involved in investigating what goes on in the unseen realms and how these invisible things in the environment can actually impact us emotionally, physically, impact our situations, anything from our emotional states to our financial conditions, our health, everything. But after all that experience that I have with the unseen realms and monitoring and learning about subtle energy dynamics, it still amazes me how impacting some of these situations can be. I was motivated to create this video this week because I had an episode happen that involved the unseen realm and energies in the unseen realm that hugely impacted me this week. And I thought this would be a great example to share with you just to heighten your awareness on this topic and also give you some tips on at least starter things that you can do to avoid trouble when it comes to non-beneficial interactions with the unseen realms. So the story this week has to do with a little rental property that I have in Sedona. And I had a guest check out, a couple checked out, and a new couple was checking in. And I had the housekeepers come in, and all this was happening the same day, so it was pretty quick. And I had the housekeepers come in, they did their bit, and then I always go in after if I'm in town, and I will do an energetic clearing of the space. And I didn't have a lot of time on this particular day, but I did my best to do some energy raising, some smudging and basic things like that. And the space felt okay. I felt it wasn't perfect, but it was pretty good. And I didn't have any time left, and that was the end of that. Well, I went to call the guests that were supposed to arrive in a short bit just to see when exactly they would be arriving. And I walked into the hallway. I sat down at the little desk chair in the hallway at the little computer station, phone station in the hall. And the second I sat down, whoop, just like that, it was just excruciating pain in my back. It was like somebody had taken the lower part of my back, just kind of on top of, the upper, ridges of my butt right there. Oh my gosh, it was just excruciating pain. Like someone had taken a baseball bat and just beat the heck out of me along my back. Now, most people would think, they'd logically think if something like that happened to them is, oh, I must have twisted my back. Everybody rationalizes all this stuff. Oh, I must have twisted my back, and caused something to pop out or whatever. But I have so much experience with this stuff. I knew instantly I didn't twist my back. This was a telltale sign of thought form transfer or a thought form imprint. The chair, as it turns out, that I sat down in was completely covered, totally saturated with really dense thought forms. And from the guests who had stayed there prior to the new guests who were checking in, because those thought forms were not there the last time I had checked that chair. So it was a new arrival. And I had been imprinted with actually it was beyond an imprint. I actually took a transfer of the thought forms from the chair onto my energy system, and that's what was causing the pain. I checked the space. Again, the guests were arriving soon. Did a few little energy tricks that I know to try to clear the space so they would not be impacted. Felt okay about the situation, and went on my way not long after the guests arrived, and I checked them in. But oh my gosh, my back hurt so badly, and I could not get rid of the pain. Now, usually I can handle situations like this in 5 minutes. I mean, I have so many different tricks. I could not figure this out. I couldn't sleep. I could barely walk. I finally needed to involve a great friend of mine who's a gifted clairvoyant, and she and I together used our intuitive skills to figure out what was the content of those thought forms. Sometimes with situations like this and thought form attachments to furniture, freestanding thought forms in a space left behind by people who have been in this space, emotional imprints, literally belief code imprints in a space, are far more common than you would ever imagine. And they can affect us very, very physically, again, in almost any category of your life. Sometimes you can use simple techniques. Weak thought forms can be cleared with things like smudging. You want to learn more about that, and collect different smudging substances, because there's not one size fits all. Like maybe you need sage, maybe you need something. I use something called dragon's blood very regularly. It's a resin from the draconis tree. Smells really good. Doesn't smell like marijuana like sage does. So you can use it in your space a little more readily without anybody being upset by the odors, whatever. Frankincense is good. Bay leaf smudging. You can either burn bay leaves or boil them and create a steam and smudge the space with bay leaves. Those are just a few examples. So on very weak thought forms, very often that will balance the problem. But and sometimes the thought forms are so strong, as in this case, it actually damaged the very matrix of the space. Then you have to do a little patch-up job on the space itself. You can do that with intention. Very often that will work. Sometimes you need to use other balancing agents, things like sounds, colors. The list is very, very big, so I don't have time to get into that. But bottom line, sometimes the space needs to be patched up. The space was okay with just some intention work on my part, and I called in the intelligences of nature to help me. Just put out a call for the intelligences of nature to come in and balance the energies in that immediate space, and they did arrive, and they did balance the energy. That won't always work, but again, that's a good, easy strategy. I've got a fantastic seminar in the Sensar Video Vault, and I've also got it in an audio, a more elaborate audio format, in my Sensar Video Vault called Manifestation and the Powers of Nature. And I've got the same audio program. It's, again, a little bit more comprehensive program in the audio recording in a training program called the Conscious Creators Toolkit, if you have an interest in pursuing more education on how to do this type of stuff that I'm talking about. But the long story short is you're going to need to do some balancing if you end up with something like that, thought forms attached to you, or a copy of the thought form in your energy field. That's called an imprint. You're going to need to do something to yourself, smudging, energy raising of some sort, possibly repairing your aura. You're going to need to do the same thing very often to the space, smudging, repairing the aura of the space in essence, and there are a variety of ways to do that. So finally, I was able to figure out what was going on. It took 2 days to figure it out, and as I mentioned, I needed to actually get the help of a friend, a clairvoyant friend, to do it. These thought forms were so intense and so dense that I actually had to decrypt the thought forms, the content of the thought forms. Sometimes you need to do that. And the content, I'm going to tell you the content because it's very interesting, of these thought forms was fall from grace. I have fallen from grace. So whoever sat in that chair and left the thought forms was having some kind of issues, probably subconscious, but having issues about falling off some kind of pedestal. And I've got a very strong intuitive read, not living the ideal life that this person wants to be living, or not living at the scale that they were apparently at one time experiencing. So the long and the short of it is the energy was fall from grace. And once I figured out what that was, I was able to use a form of energy raising with words and images to actually balance the energy totally in my energy field. Now, how do I know this is subtle energies and I didn't just twist my back? Because the pain in my back, the second that I finished the balancing exercise with the word raising and the images, the pain instantly was gone. Just like that, totally gone, as though it had never happened. So again, what would happen to most people out there if something like this happened to them? They would think they twisted their back. That's what they would think. And they'd probably go see a chiropractor if the pain didn't go away when they slept on it. Maybe some other health practitioners. They might try different types of exercises, taking soothing baths, essential oils, who knows what, trying to work the pain out. But they would think it was a very physical thing that had happened to them. And in fact, this case, and I guarantee you stuff like this happens to you far more than you would ever realize. It's subtle energy. It's completely subtle energy. Nothing is actually wrong with you physically, but it feels, it is wrong with you physically. You feel physical pain, but the problem is completely energetic. And as soon as you remove the energetic diagram, blueprint, if you will, of the problematic energy, in this case, what I was feeling, it felt like I had fallen down. This would be another way I could describe it. Like I had fallen down a flight of stairs and broken my hips, both hips. That's how bad it was. So the physical outplay will match the language of the content of the thought forms, the emotional content, the actual thought patterning, which are called belief codes in those thought balls, if you will. So that was my experience, but the story, the plot thickens. I checked in those guests, and remember I said that the space was okay. I thought it was pretty clear, but I could tell it wasn't 100% clear. And I just sent out a wishful thought that everything was clear enough that it wouldn't have an impact on these guests. The next morning, I get a telephone call from the guests, and that evening, as the wife of the couple was serving dinner, they were eating out on the patio, and there's a series of steps that you walk down, and then one last step that you have to step down into this kind of sunken patio. She fell. She didn't see the last step. She fell. She fell on the ground, twisted her knee, dropped the plate she was carrying. They were having an Indian takeout meal that they had gotten at a local restaurant, and it was a curry dish. So the curry dish went all over the patio, stained the stones, broke the plate, hurt her knee, all of this. Fall from grace. This is a direct outplay of that energy. And as it turns out, the couple who had been there before, they had spent quite a bit of time on the patio and had left, after the fact I discover this, had left fall from grace energy on the patio. And here it attracts a literal fall with this woman. Now, luckily, I had done, or happily, I had done some clearing, and I am convinced that had I not done the clearing work that I had done prior to these guests arriving, this fall could have been catastrophic. This woman was like 70 years old. It could have been absolutely catastrophic, and it wasn't. She didn't even need to go to the hospital. Her knee, was back to normalcy within a couple of days, but it goes to show you the significant impact of subtle energies, thought forms in the environment. Now, one more story. This is kind of a fun one from my past. I could tell you thousands of stories. That's how rampant thought forms in environments actually are. But one more story that popped to mind today. I was trying to think of, well, what will I tell them in the video? I thought of one story that is kind of amusing. This was years ago, and I was, at the time, the vice president of the dowsing organization here in Sedona. And we were having a big meeting with this guy that we brought in from the East Coast. And I would always get there early. I'd set up, we would always have a table where we had little products like pendulums and all that type, little books and all that type of thing. And the speakers that we would bring in would usually have products. Well, this guy had lots of books that he wanted to sell at the meeting. And so his assistant had set up his table, and I set up the other little table. When I was done with my little task, I went over, turned, and I started walking towards the table where his books were set up, and I was literally knocked back like this. Just whoom, a wall of energy so strong emitting from those books just knocked me back like that. I instantly got the shakes. It shot my blood sugar all to heck. I had to go sit down. The energy was so strong. And to try to recoup, I usually was the person who would introduce all the guests. I was so toppled. The name of the seminar tonight, or the little video tonight, is Unseen Energies and How They Can Topple You in Seconds. I was totally toppled by the impact of whatever was going on with those books, the energy field, and the bam when it hit me. So I couldn't even introduce the guests. That's how shaky I was. I finally got everything together. I cleared myself. I stood in the back. I used intentional methods. I hopefully cleared the energy around the book so other people wouldn't be hugely impacted by what was going on. I didn't give it another thought. That was that. I thought it was done. I knew it was some kind of thought form problem. No problem. We fix it. On we go. Well, no, not on we go. I didn't connect the dots, but what began to happen in the days that followed, and it turned into months that followed, my business started crumbling. My sales revenue began dropping day after day after day after day. And after a couple of months, it was probably 2 or 3 months. I mean, I was just, trickling. The sales were just trickling in. I was in a very bad shape financially in regards to what was happening with my business. So finally, I did some heavy-duty detective work, and I said, something has caused this problem. I'm now like 3 months into it, and it's like I'm out of business. That's how bad my sales were. And I asked a question, when did something is energetically influencing me that I have completely missed, that I missed somehow? I doused to see if it was my own energy. It wasn't. And I thought, okay, I took a calendar and I said, where did I get the energy? Does this have to do with thought forms? Yes, it does. Do I have some kind of an imprint? Yes, I do. When did I get it? And I tracked back on the calendar and boom, I was muscle testing at the time, and I get a strong muscle test on, guess what, that day of that meeting, that I got hit by that wall of energy. Well, apparently I never did decrypt the content of the thought forms that were attached to that book. But apparently they had to do with financial stress and financial distress in the hopes of selling lots of those books. And the distress energy hit me, and it instantly began as a play out in my business of a booming business going from booming to just a trickle almost overnight. I mean, literally almost overnight, probably overnight. I didn't notice it right away, but it was probably instantaneous that it happened. So again, I used a variety of energy raising techniques. I never did go in and decrypt what the energy was other than I got the themes. And I knew that it was something financial, some kind of financial distress that I had gotten imprinted with. And then my life began modeling that. That's what will happen. You will begin experiencing things that model exactly the nature of we could call it the language of the thought forms that you actually get the imprint of or the direct transfer of. So I use some energy raising techniques to simply create neutralizing frequencies to basically balance everything. Within, truly no exaggeration, within hours my sales started going up, and within a week everything was back to normal. It was that dramatic. So the point of all this is pay attention. Pay close attention to immediate shifts in your body and in your environment. When immediate shifts occur for no apparent reason, you can bet that it is subtle energy interaction, that it has to do with unseen energies. You can start by just checking, just dowsing, muscle testing like you see me do here and in other videos, taking a pendulum and just checking, am I being influenced by some kind of energy that I've picked up from somewhere? Some kind of thought forms that I've picked up from somewhere, either copies or direct transfers of thought forms. If you get a yes, then you're going to need to figure out, well, what do I need to do? Again, start with something simple like smudging and learn more about this topic. Learn more about how to balance, how to do energy raising, how to do decryption of thought forms. That's very advanced, but you can learn how to do all this. And you'll be amazed at how quickly you can adjust situations that otherwise you might suffer with for months and months and months. And there's no need to do that. If you know that you've been influenced by subtle energies, you can fix it pretty quickly in most cases. So that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed the stories. Hope you learned something. Hope at the very least you'll start checking a little more often for thought forms in your space. They do get into your space and onto objects like chairs and things like that far more than you would ever realize. So it behooves you to check periodically for them. It behooves you to just periodically, just on autopilot, even if you're not checking for thought forms, to do smudging and basic space clearing. I'll reference back to, again, the Sensor Video Vault. I've got a fantastic seminar in the Video Vault called Space Clearing Made Easy, and that could be helpful to you in beginning to learn a little bit more about how to handle situations like that. But that's it for today. Hope you learned something, and I look forward to talking with you next time.